You're listening to Docs Outside the Box, episode 31.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
This episode is brought to you by Set for Life Insurance. Protect yourself against life setbacks with Set for Life Insurance. Set for Life Insurance gets you disability and life insurance at a reduced cost with their exclusive discounts. Now that's why I use them. Visit www.setforlifeinsurance.com and tell them Dr. Darko sent you. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am the Doc Outside the Box. That's right, Dr. Nee Darko here. And I'm bringing you stories of ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. And I'm trying to inspire doctors all over the world to live outside the box. Now, look, I've always said and joked around, and I'm serious about this, that I'll start taking EMRs, electronic medical records, seriously once Google stepped in and created their own. And I'm serious. I've been joking about this for at least 6 or 7 years. And the reason why I say this is because, in my own opinion, EMRs are not intuitive at all. As a practicing doctor myself, I know how much longer I spend documenting and correcting errors and documenting and dictating and, correcting those things and charting compared to really the infinitesimal amount of time that I actually spend in front of a patient. And that's just me. I'm sure you've heard that complaint from nurses and from other medical staff who spend, so much time with patients, but then at the same time, they're spending all these extra hours just documenting their patient interactions. So I know that I spend a large amount of time working with these EMRs, and I just feel like they're not intuitive at all. I feel like they oftentimes kind of get in the way. And look, don't just take my word for it, because there's actually numerous studies that are out there that show that EMRs don't really help patient outcomes. As a matter of fact, they really just help billing for the hospital. So, all of this really drives me nuts. But look, we're not here to talk about EMRs, but we're here to talk about someone as well as a company that has tackled something that is just as frustrating in a physician's life. And that's this dang sign out, rounding, to-do list, whatever you want to call it. Anybody who is in a medical field or a medical specialty that requires handing off of patients from one physician to another, ER, trauma, general surgery, OB, whatever it may be, if you use a sign-out list, you know how tedious and how complicated this can be and how frustrating it can be doing the whole sign-out process. And you've been there, I've been there. You walk around with this 4, 5, 7, 10, 12-page form sheet that stays in your back pocket or your white coat, and it only has the events that happen, prior to sign out. It's not very dynamic, and I know I've lost it mad times. I don't know about you all, but as you know, if you lose this form, it has patient information on it. I mean, it's literally, you can get in trouble for it. It's a HIPAA violation. So, my next guest is Dr. Gautam Sivakumar, and he's been frustrated by this process also, and he actually decided to do something about it, which is quite different than what most doctors do, which is mainly complain. I'm one of them. I raise my hand. I do that. But I have him on the show because he has literally taken the startup focused entrepreneurial approach to create a solution that's going to make the sign-out process faster, intuitive, and more collaborative. So Gautam's solution is called Medisas, and I first got introduced to Medisas at the American College of Surgeons, the exhibitor gallery back in 2016, and I got a chance to demo this software, and I was really fascinated by this software because I'm in a specialty, trauma and general surgery, where there's a lot of signing out that occurs, but oftentimes, things get lost in translation, things don't get translated 12 hours later to the next sign-out process. But I was really fascinated with this software, and I became even more fascinated when the people who were talking to me about this program said that this company was started by a physician. And that's when my ears perked up, and I was like, look, I got to get a chance to talk to this individual and learn more about how he started this organization and this company. So with Medisas, you can assign tasks to members of the team, right, which is something that already occurs, but imagine being able to have an electronic way where you can mark someone responsible for doing that task, and you can follow them real time as they complete that. You can actually have, a quick and easy way to communicate with team members in a HIPAA compliant way with texts as well as with chats. You can round on patients and provide updates to other members of the team so they know that you saw patient X and you ordered lab Y. So then, team member X needs to follow up on that, which I think is pretty cool. But, for me, the big thing, obviously, is being able to communicate with team members in a HIPAA compliant way. Because for me, as everybody knows, I avoid communicating with my cell phone for patient information like the plague. I ain't trying to go to jail. I don't want to have any of that information on my phone. So that really that really gets my interest going also. So what he's doing with his company is great. I think that is amazing. But with Docs Outside the Box, as you know of this podcast, oftentimes we are more fascinated with the process as opposed with the end product. The end product is important, but I think it's just as important to understand the process or the path in which he got there. So I have him on the show to talk about how this idea started, why he felt so passionate about this project. And literally, he's from England. He was doing his surgery residency and noticed that literally the technology to chat with his friends, to text with his friends was in his iPhone. Meanwhile, something that's just way more important, such as patient information and who needs surgery and who need labs and lab results, was literally on a piece of printed paper that can get lost by the wayside. And that didn't seem right to him. So with all this passion that he had, he basically said deuces to surgery, and he bounced from surgery residency and moved back in with his parents and was chilling in his childhood bedroom and programming there. And he got an invite from a friend who lived in Silicon Valley, and he flew across the pond, started hustling, and the rest is history. So we're talking about in a span of 6 years from that point, he started and he left his company left surgery in 2011. And 6 years later now, Medisas is found in some of the more major hospitals across the United States. So very briefly, as you already have figured out, Gautam is from England. He grew up in England and went to medical school at the Newcastle University Medical School, and obviously from there decided to go into surgery and left there. So look, without further ado, let's get on with this interview. There's so much things that I want you all to learn from this. This is a really fun interview, and let's take it from there. Back at it again with another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm excited to bring to you the CEO of the company Medisas, Dr. Gautam Sivakumar, who is the CEO of Medisas, which is a privately held company based in San Francisco that has a deep mission, which is to use software to impact the care of human life. Dr. Gautam Sivakumar, welcome to Docs Outside the Box, man.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be on the show.
Oh, yeah. I've been looking forward to having you since I met your company and seen what your company can do back at the American College of Surgeons meeting back in October of 2016.
We appreciated the friendly tweet that you sent out as well. I was on my way to work and I saw that come up and I said, oh, that seems to be somebody that I need to talk to and a show that I need to listen to. So I've been very excited to be on the show too.
So CEOs do pay attention to tweets, huh?
Very occasionally, especially when the companies get mentioned in the tweet storm. That definitely comes up as a notification, certainly on my phone.
So, before we get too much into the nitty gritty, we want to learn a lot about you, but can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what med school you came from, all of that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in South India, but I grew up in England for almost all of my life. I went into medicine for the same reasons that hopefully most of us decide to go into medicine. I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something that was meaningful. I knew that I wanted to do something where I could make an impact. And when I was very, very young, unfortunately, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so
Sorry
I
to hear
spent,
that.
yeah, and this is definitely something that a lot of people go through. And for me, it was definitely the single most formative experience of my childhood. And I spent a lot of time in hospitals with her. She went through multiple surgeries and chemo and radiotherapy. And going through that experience certainly led me to finding medicine as my vocation. And I was lucky enough to get into Newcastle Med School in the UK, which at the time was the number one med school in the UK. And then I got there, and the rankings went down. But that's what I do. And I think it dropped to number 2 or 3. But great med school, really heavy focus on the holistic aspect of medicine, not just academic learning. And then I was lucky enough to get into this great residency program, and I was going down the surgical route, and that was what I was really passionate in. Until I decided to do the crazy thing and say, you know what, I'm going to quit my job, jump off a cliff, and start this software company, which is
happens all the time. Yeah, no
happens all the time, right?
So what happened from that time in your transition of residency where you said, like you just said, you're going to jump off a cliff and just form a parachute or form wings on the way down? What happened?
That's a great question. I mean, for me personally, I was getting very frustrated at how I was working in the hospital. Now, I always say that, if you're a doctor working in a hospital, you'll find yourself getting frustrated a lot. But a lot of the frustration is, hey, I don't have the tools to do my job. Now, I also have this weird hybrid background in that I've been programming since I was in my teens, and I've been designing since even before then. And so if you can build things and you're a doctor working in a hospital, you get very, very frustrated. And it didn't make any sense to me that I would walk around the hospital with an iPhone in one hand and a clump of paper in the other. And the iPhone would have a tweet from somebody halfway around the world about some sporting event that I may not have really cared about. And I would know what they were thinking. But the clump of paper would have life and death information for 50 people. And I would have no idea, right? I mean, isn't that completely insane? How can we live in a world where that is the case? That, I can have on my phone in the hospital in HD a video of somebody falling over in Australia, but I have no idea what my colleague is thinking about my patient in the ICU because they're 3 floors down. And that just really didn't make any sense to me. And I got sick and tired of going into work every day and saying to my colleagues, I could build something better than this. I could build something better than this. I could build something better than this. And eventually one day you go in and say, screw it, I'm going to go build something better than this. And that was how I ended up founding the company. And then I did the usual standard stuff of, quitting the job and selling my apartment and moving back into my childhood bedroom, much to the delight of my family. But
how did I go over with your family when you told them that medicine is not for you anymore, or at least you're not going to finish your training, and you're going to start this company to make the world better, one click or software at a time? How did that go?
I think it was, not ideally. I think it was definitely a not very well understood path that I was going down. And I think my family, they were very, very supportive, and they understood why I was doing this, and they had faith that I would land on my own feet. But certainly it was a case of, okay, well, my, doctor son, who was out there, operating on people and doing something that we all know is very meaningful and well respected, has decided to now sit at home, tapping away on his computer. But they were very understanding, even though they didn't really understand what it was about. I think it was more a belief in me than anything else that they had that sort of let them get over that initial hesitation or apprehension.
Okay, so look, we all say that, right? We all say, I feel like, this process in medicine, I would do A, B, C, and D. Or someone else says X, Y, and Z, but we're not really serious. How did you know that you really had the solution to say, okay, because what it is that Medisas is trying to work on is actually the communication between doctors in terms of the sign-out process, right? How do you know, okay, I actually could make something that's better. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Take us through that thought process. How'd you do it?
So I don't think that any sane, rational person can say, oh, I absolutely have the perfect solution, because you really don't know until it gets into the hands of the users, until you go out there and you implement the solution and you're able to see some of the results. What I did know was that I really, really believed in needing to improve this process. I really believed in the power of technology to impact patient care. We are definitely a very mission-driven company at Medisas. And you mentioned our mission at the beginning, but I actually think that before you get to the mission of a company, you have to figure out what you believe in as a group of people. What is your core belief as a group of people? And for me at the time, and certainly for us now as a company here at Medisas today, the core belief is that technology and software is the greatest catalyst that healthcare and medicine will see for the next 2 centuries. And that is why our mission as a company is to leverage that software and technology to have the biggest impact possible on the care of human life. And at the time that I started the company, I knew that this was a problem that I faced. I knew that this was a problem I wanted to be solved. But I also had a deep, deep belief that I still do today that software has the power to really, really solve a lot of these problems. And I also knew that I was the person that was going to care the most and be the most focused on improving these things with software. And so I jumped off into the abyss with basically this idea that, okay, well, hey, I might not know what I'm doing about a lot of these things, but I really, really care. And I'm going to go out there and learn as much as I can to help to solve these problems.
When you are in residency, you're rounding on patients. I'm assuming rounds occur the same way in overseas as they do here in the United States. When you start to have that feeling like you're more passionate about something else, did you talk to anybody else about that? Did you talk to fellow colleagues, family, friends? Did someone say, "Hey, like what you're doing is about to be crazy"? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me, the passion has always been around medicine. And for me, it was just a case of, hey, I just feel that I can have a bigger impact on medicine in this other way. A friend of mine was recently asking me, hey, do you miss practicing medicine? I said, of course. I absolutely love practicing medicine. I love seeing patients, and I love seeing the impact that what I do has on this other human being, and hopefully making them better. But then he said, yeah, but I guess you get to be a doctor at scale now. And so that's the way that I think of it, is I get to be a doctor at scale. And I had this realization, I guess, at the time that I was not able to verbalize in this way, but that I could be a doctor at scale and have a bigger impact. And so at that time, of course, it starts with grumbling frustrations, or it did certainly for me, that, hey, I could do something better than this. Why does the screen look this way? Why do we have paper here? And you walk around the hospital almost seeing it the way that it should be. And I certainly, ran some of these ideas by my friends, frustrations by my friends. And you realize that, hey, it's not just a problem for me, of course, it's a problem for everyone else. And what I'm saying makes a lot of sense to everybody here. For me, certainly, there wasn't sort of this one aha moment where I decided, oh, I'm going to quit now. It was a gradual realization over a period of time. And it gets to a point where you're so deep in the hole that, that's the only rational way out of the hole is to say, okay, well, I'm going to go and fix this.
Now, I read in the Inc. You're featured in Inc. magazine a while back ago, and what that article was able to describe is you kind of feel as though the skills that you have as a physician are transferable to your skills as a CEO. In there, you talked about the ABCs and how that, we use the ABCs in terms of resuscitation and evaluation of a patient. But you said that you could also use that in terms of being a CEO and as an entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So actually, the history behind that article is that the journalist who was writing the article had reached out to me to say, hey, could you talk about the differences between medicine and being an entrepreneur, being a founder? And I said, well, actually, what's more interesting are the similarities, because I feel that a lot of the skills that I learned in medicine are really applicable to running and building a company. And, the first thing, as you mentioned, I talked about was the ABC format, or really this is about prioritization. And when you start a company and then you grow a company, and if it's, growing quickly, you're in this really weird place where you're having to hyper prioritize constantly. There are a million things going on. All of them are critical. And you have to be able to very quickly prioritize. Now that, of course, for anyone who's gone through any sort of medical training, you should be able to say, oh, well, hey, that sounds a lot like what I did. And so being able to prioritize quickly, and often, that certainly has been a very, very essential part of my growth as a founder or as a CEO. Is certainly essential to anyone who works at a company like Medisas. We really, really try and figure out how people deal with ambiguity, how they deal with prioritization, because it's such an essential skill to have. But then there are other skills as well. So I think the article probably talked about, how I believe that communication is something that we are taught a lot about in medical training, and certainly if we're not taught, we get thrown into the deep end and have to learn how to communicate with a lot of people very quickly. And certainly in running a company, a lot of my job is communicating to different groups of people. Communicating to the team, communicating to customers, communicating to investors, various different folks. And so certainly a lot of skills that I think I acquired in my medical training have been absolutely essential to helping me on this journey to improve how I communicate as a CEO. But then there are other things as well, like problem solving and pattern recognition, this idea of lifelong learning and this culture of lifelong learning, dealing with a multidisciplinary team that's all heading in the same direction. How do you sort of help them succeed, understanding people and helping them solve their problems rather than just being focused on your own? Even breaking bad news is something that I think, unfortunately, is a skill that you need to have as a leader. So there are lots of things that medicine teaches you that, if you really think about it, can be applied in lots of other disciplines.
I'm still held up on the thought process of you being back at home programming and coding. So when you're at home, because I have this mental picture in my head of you basically in your room, you're coding, things are going on downstairs or upstairs, depending on what floor you are in your parents' home, and you're coding this. Obviously, Medisas does not exist anymore. How did that, take us through that process of how you're coding and you come up with this product, and then you say, I'm going to create a company, and then you end up going across the pond, you come to the United States, and you end up in Silicon Valley. Can you take us through that process?
Yeah, so I mean, I quit my job, sold my apartment. My folks were gracious enough to let me go back home and live at home, so that I could take any savings that I had and not have to spend that on rent.
That's about to say rent free.
Rent free. I often think about how at the time I had sort of the Googler lifestyle of I had free accommodation. I didn't have to cook, and so food was there. I was a very short commute to work because my desk was on the other side of the bedroom, and so I would be able to roll out of bed and walk over to the desk. It was
Nice.
Actually, as I think about it, highly optimized for productivity.
Nice.
And day one is very, very weird because you go from having this team around you, and it's very clear what you have to do, and there's a network of support around you, to being there at your desk and you have this laptop that barely works, and it's a case of, well, okay, what now? And for me, I decided to start with, hey, well, I'm going to try and start to build what I wanted to use, and you focus on the one very specific problem. You start coming up with a hypothesis. You say, okay, well, hey, I want to recreate my paper list, and I'm going to try and make it more intelligent. And then it's an iterative process where I think I built the first, I don't even seem to say prototype, the first inkling of a prototype on a Sunday night, and I took it to some of my former colleagues on Monday morning and said, hey, what do you think? And they said, well, I like this, this is really terrible. And then you go away and you improve that, and it's just an iterative process where you evolve it slowly over time.
Is that like the 1.0 version, or is that like the 0.1?
It is a 0.00005 version. And so, the first few months are very lonely. Nobody really understands, what you're doing. You have to push through that phase where, you question, like, oh, did I really make the right decision? I really believe in what I'm doing, but was this really sensible? And my friends who will be doing, surgery would text me at 3 a.m. because they would know that I'd be the only crazy person still awake at that time, and say, hey, I just did this really cool lung transplant, and here's what happened. And you look at the computer screen and say, well, I can't get this popover to appear. What am I really doing with my life? And so you have to be able to push through that and say, well, no, I really believe in this. This needs to exist. And whatever happens, I'm going to make this exist because I owe it to myself and I owe it to the world to at least try. And so that was certainly the first few, lonely months. And then, I knew that I wanted to build a company in Silicon Valley. The way I look at it, a startup is like a seed, and you can choose to plant that seed in any soil that you want. And the real question then becomes, well, why would you not plant that seed in the most nutritious soil? And Silicon Valley is so set up for building successful technology companies. And it was a no-brainer for me that Medisas had to be a Silicon Valley company. We wanted to have the kind of people that you find here working on this problem. We wanted to surround ourselves with this culture and network and this nutritious soil. And so came out here, applied to Y Combinator, which is a startup exposure that some of your listeners might be familiar with. Was really lucky to get into YC as a single founder, and then you sort of go from there and eventually manage to build a really amazing team and a product and clients, and it sort of spirals from there.
But Silicon Valley is mad expensive, though. How are you able to afford that? That's crazy.
So I came out here. So the story, I guess, that not a lot of people know is that I came out here for what can only be kindly called a research trip. Before I founded the company, and was lucky enough to connect with a couple of people who were in the ecosystem, and so I made a couple of really great friends that way. And after I founded the company, I remember calling one of my friends up, who was a founder of a company out here, and I said, hey man, I quit my job and I started this company, and I know that I want to bring it to Silicon Valley at some point. I know that I want to come out there, but I have limited savings. When should I try and come out there? And he said, get on the next plane. And I said, you're a crazy person, and hung up. Now the next day I emailed him to say, hey, I booked my tickets. I'll be there next week. Can I have a place to crash? And so Silicon Valley is crazy expensive, and I wouldn't have been here, and Medisas wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the generosity of some very, very good friends who let me crash on their couch, who put up with me for more than is reasonable, and that was sort of how I tried to make that work at the beginning.
I think it's amazing what you just said. Your friends say, get over here right now. And that has to be completely mind-blowing, because for a physician, for anybody who's going into medical school or who's on the other side, you spend your entire life having this single-mindedness of focus, right? It's, in your mind, it's going to take 5, 10, maybe even longer to get to that process, and nobody can get you off your path. But just like that, boom, just in a blink of an eye, someone's saying, forget all that. Forget what's going on in England. You need to be over here in Silicon Valley. Buy a ticket now. It's such a shift in how people think between business world and obviously, against and comparing it to medicine.
So you hit upon the key thing there, which is absolute focus. And I think that is really what I really believe is key to succeeding in many disciplines, and certainly in trying to build a company. That you go from having this single-minded focus of, hey, I'm going to get through my medical training, and I'm going to be the best doctor that I can. What happened for me was certainly that switch in focus. So the focus shifted from, I'm on the medical treadmill and I'm, going to aim for this one point at, 15, 20 years into the future, to, hey, my focus is now shifted to this mission. And once that focus had shifted, the sort of tactics that I tried to apply to get to that singular end goal, that was really where the phone call and the get on a plane came from. So I actually think there are a lot of similarities there. It really depends on what your focus is. And that was really what it came down for me personally.
Now, one thing that I feel bad for, because we're literally like 10, 20 minutes into the interview, is I haven't asked you specifically what Medisas is, what you do. So tell us, what is Medisas? What do you do? Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll take a step back and say, well, how do people usually think about software in hospitals today? Until now, software in hospitals really has been about the medical record, right? EMR,
and it slows us down.
Right. It slows us down, makes us miserable. They're feeding the beast. And what's really interesting is looking at the evolution of how we got to the EMR. And the way that we got to the EMR, we said, hey, we've always had this official paper chart, this legal record. And when we got software and technology, the question was, well, okay, how do we make this electronic? And we thought by making the paper chart, the official legal record, electronic, we'd somehow be moving medicine into the 21st century. But I think any of your listeners, who works in a hospital will know that that is just definitely not the case. This belief that somehow, electronic medical records, electronic paper charts would move us into the 21st century is really false. Better patient care isn't about better documentation and record keeping. It's about collaboration. It's about putting everyone on the same page. It's about bringing together all these, disparate systems and automating all of the manual grunt work that you have to do today. The angle that we come at this from is to say, well, hey, what we need to do is have a platform that has been built from the ground up to help us improve the process of looking after patients. It's not about record keeping. It's not about billing. It's not about any of this stuff. It's about how do I get access to the information that I need really quickly? How do I communicate with the people that I need really quickly? How do I standardize the care that my patients receive? And the way that we do that is through our workflow and communication platform, which is really geared towards helping to improve, as you mentioned, the handoff process, discharges, rounding, etc. And the way that the product works is very simple. You can access it on a computer, you can access it on your phone or an iPad or any tablet. And we say, okay, well, the way that we look after patients in hospitals today is using some magical combination of a paper list that you get from your sign out and you scribble on, text messages that usually are not secure, pagers, faxes, and there's a big clunky medical record system that you have to try and hunt down a computer to use.
Don't forget your back pocket. The back pocket.
Right. Right. I mean, the space blows my mind at times, but we said, well, okay, well, what if we could take that paper patient list that you put in your pocket and connect it up with everyone else's patient list that they put in their pocket and scribble on, and then link it in real time to the EMR system? Wouldn't that be something that's interesting? And so when you log into Medisas, that's what you see is your patient list with your sign out, with all the labs, with all the things that are hidden away everywhere. And then it gives you a really easy way to communicate on top of that. So very simply, that's what Medisas is a workflow and communication tool that's really optimized around improving handoffs, rounding, discharge.
So I got a chance to actually use it at the ACS, and it's phenomenal. It's very easy. The UI is very easy on the eyes, and it's very intuitive. So I just want you to take a moment to talk to the doctors who are listening right now. Like, what's their buy-in? Why should they use this program?
Great question. I mean, very straightforward. Our objective is to, at least with the clinicians, is to give you something that is going to save you time. The thing that frustrated me the most when I was on the floors was that my time would be wasted doing things that I really didn't need to be doing. An example of this is how I would go to the EMR several times a day just to see if the lab work for a particular patient had come back. So, you go to the nurse's station, you fight for a desktop computer, eventually you get one, you log in, the thing spins for a while, you eventually, get onto the system, then you click, 20 different submenus, you find the patient, you click another 5 submenus, you pull up the lab list, and you realize, nope, not back yet. And this process, repeats several times a day. And things like that would just really, really frustrate me. So, for example, in Medisas, all you do is say, hey, I want alerts on any new lab results that come in for all of my patients. I just want lab results for this particular patient, or I just want to see the hemoglobin for this patient. And you know what? Medisas will let you know when that's back. And so we really focus on doing things that save you time. Now, for hospitals, of course, it's a case of, what does it get us? And what we found is that by building tools that really help clinicians look after patients more safely and more efficiently, the hospital itself will run more efficiently. So we're able to provide them with an ROI based on length of stay and discharge times and things like that. So there are the two angles that we come at it from: save you time and make your hospital more efficient.
And one of your biggest clients was it Children's Hospital in Los Angeles?
So
Or
Children's Hospital of Orange County, I think,
Orange
is the
County?
one that you're referring to. So we have a white paper on the website that definitely feel free to go and read. They're one of the clients that we love all of our clients, but we definitely love them a lot.
Well, congratulations on that. And so take us through the point of, you have a great idea. You're actually now with YC, you're getting venture capitalists to jump into this. Now you have to start attracting staff. What's it like trying to get your dream to convey to other people where they are feeling as passionate as yourself and you're trying to hire people who are just as passionate about this dream as you?
That is a good question. I mean, I read somewhere recently that the difference between a vision and a hallucination is that other people can see the vision. I don't know how true that is, but I feel that really the way that you try and communicate your vision to other people is, first of all, have a vision that makes sense and that other people can naturally see. So the things that I talk about, it's not that I had this great, amazing, vision of the future, and I was standing from on high and telling people how it was going to be. All I was doing was communicating the reality that we all knew deep within ourselves. And so in terms of attracting the right people, it's definitely a long and difficult process, because you're not only looking for people who are passionate about this core mission and sharing your vision, but you're looking for people who have the right skill sets, who believe from a value standpoint the same things you do in terms of building the right kind of company, et cetera. So it's a very difficult process. And even now today, with the resources that we have and the amazing team that we have, it continues to be a difficult process to recruit the right kind of people, because you're looking at so many different things. But in terms of the vision and communicating that vision, I think you try and find something that is very authentically true and that you believe in very deeply. And if it's a real problem, other people will also see that and believe in it too.
Do you remember the fear you had when you were starting this company?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fear is always very real at every stage of a company's process. I'm convinced that somewhere Larry Page is sitting around thinking, "Oh my gosh, Google, we're so screwed in so many different ways." And I heard a quote not that long ago. The CEO of some large company was asked, "Well, now that you guys are this huge, mega success, it must be easier." And they quoted an athlete, I don't know which athlete specifically, who was asked upon becoming world number one, that, well, now that you're the champion, it must be so easy. And they said, well, it never gets any easier. You just get faster. And so I
That's a
don't
good
think
point.
that I don't think it gets any easier. You just get faster, and you figure out ways of dealing with this. Now, for me, of course, did I worry that no one was going to even care about this? Did I worry that we were never going to get any clients? Did I worry that we were never going to be able to attract anyone to the team? Did I worry about all these various different things? Of course I did. And then you systematically work to de-risk each of those things. But for me personally, the bigger fear was not having given it a go. And I can live with failure. I can live with a whole bunch of things, but I can't live with this thought that I could have done this, but I didn't. I didn't try. And I think the last
I
time
love that point. I love that point.
right, and it's so true. At least to me, it feels so true. And I think the last time that we spoke, I said that one of my favorite quotes was from the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. That there's a tide in the affairs of men. And the quote goes something like, "There's a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallowness and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves us, or lose our ventures." And this quote, and
You're gonna have to explain that for us.
I was saying it. So the quote it comes from a part of the play where Caesar has been assassinated, and Brutus and Cassius, who were parts of the assassination group, are now at civil war with Octavian and Mark Antony. And the troops are going to meet each other in battle. And Cassius and Brutus, their troops, reach a point where they can rest and they can catch their breath. And Cassius makes the case that hey, we should rest and let the troops catch their breath, and then we will go and meet these guys in battle. Brutus makes a point that, hey, out there, they're going to be able to go and recruit more people. They're getting stronger and stronger. And even if we rest now, we will only be getting weaker and weaker. And Brutus gives this little speech of, hey, there's a time in the affairs of men, where he essentially is arguing that opportunity is like the tide. It ebbs and flows like the tide. And he says, well, there's a time in the affairs of men which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. But omitted, all the voyage of their lives is bound in shallowness and in misery. If you don't go now, you're going to be just standing in the shallowness of your own misery. And then he goes on to say, on such a full sea are we now afloat, we must take the current when it serves us or lose our ventures. And for me, that really, really resonated. That I could see that if I continued down the medical path, I'd be very comfortable. I was driving a nice car, I had my own house, all this stuff was great and wonderful. But in 20 years' time, I knew that I'd be driving my slightly better car and my slightly better house. And on that drive to my really great job, I would have this niggling thought that, hey, what would have happened if you'd just given this a go? Where would you have been? Sure, but where could you have moved the needle, and where would the world have been? And that fear was much bigger to me than a fear of failure or fear of not being able to make any one component of this work.
See, that quote, that anecdote, I think is going to resonate with the listeners because it's so poignant, right? I think we all kind of think about it. Even as we become attendings, we kind of think, am I doing the right thing? Am I to just kind of continue this pathway for the next 15, 20 years without going left or right, just keep going straight? I think it's something that I appreciate your answer in that. It's true talk. It's very honest. So thank you very much for that answer. When you are in Silicon Valley, obviously you're surrounded with a bunch of entrepreneurs, a lot of millionaires, billionaires. Do you look at yourself as a physician who happens to be an entrepreneur, or do you look at yourself as just an entrepreneur? And with that thought process also, how do you think other people look at you also? Do you think they look at you as a physician or just as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. So whenever I'm on a plane and somebody asks me, hey, what do you do? My instinctive go-to answer, that I don't overthink is, oh, I'm a doctor. And then I say, oh, but I work for a software company. And so I think for me personally, being a doctor is definitely a core part of who I am. And I went into medicine for very specific and very personal reasons. It was, still is, and I imagine will always be my vocation. And it just so happens the way that I'm trying to improve and impact medicine is using this avenue. So for me personally, I really just think about myself as a doctor first. But of course, any human being is not just one thing. There are many things, and I know that this is, part of the theme of your podcast and what you're trying to do is say, hey, don't just look at doctors as being doctors. Doctors are many things, and can be many things. But for me personally, that's number one. And then, of course, I'm sure that our investors think of me in a particular way as an entrepreneur. I'm sure that the team looks at me and sees, oh, there's a CEO guy. So I think it really depends on who you talk to. But for me personally, being a doctor is very much a core part of who I am and what I care about, and achieving the same things is if I was practicing, just hopefully on a larger scale. Great answer. Well, we're getting towards the end of the interview. I'm going to ask you some quick, fast questions.
Man,
okay.
You ready to do this?
I'm going to get my stretch on. Let's try.
The first thing on the top of your mind. So, what's one thing you want listeners to get from this podcast?
Go out there and learn. You can learn most of the things you need to succeed. If you have a growth mindset and you're willing to do any work that you need to achieve something, you'll be able to learn what you need to. So go out there and learn, have that growth mindset at all times, and you'll be good.
Love it. What can the audience expect from you in 5 years?
Hopefully Medisas in every single hospital that you ever work in and practice in. We'll have some cool new things coming out soon. We'll have some very, very useful things coming out soon. So hopefully we're in a lot more hospitals and every hospital that your audience might practice in. And hopefully we're able to show that we're having a really massive impact on how patients are looked after.
I can't wait, man. I really can't wait.
Me neither.
Now, I'm all about life hacks. I'm trying to get the audience to take up more life hacks to be more productive. Well, excuse me, to be more productive. Do you use any life hacks to be more productive?
I'm constantly tweaking and optimizing everything in my working life, and I think part of the challenge for me is that Medisas is growing so fast that anything that I try and implement gets broken very quickly, and then you quickly have to put a new hack together. I guess my latest one is I mean, I guess I'll give a high level overview. Of I have a system of labeling my emails using Todoist for all my tasks.
You use Todoist, huh?
Yeah, I use Todoist a lot. I mean, I guess, I run a company that makes software that helps with tasks and checklists and making people more productive and saving time in the hospital. So I definitely live what I preach. So yeah, for me, the email labeling, Todoist, and then Evernote, I take notes on everything. And I have sort of a special combination of all three of those things to make sure that I don't drop the ball on something. And that to me is absolutely essential because I get a gazillion emails and there are a million things going on at any given time at Medisas. And so that for me is probably the latest hack.
Now, you don't have to name the exact companies or their names specifically, but are there companies out there that you look at, you're just like, like you look at them as competitors and you see them encroaching on what you're doing?
So I have a very Y Combinator, Paul Graham way of thinking of competition. That as a growing company, certainly as a startup, you're much more likely to kill yourself than be killed by other people. So PG has a couple of great quotes on this. He says that suicide is a much more common cause of startup death than homicide. Just don't kill yourself. And I think the other one that's probably more relevant to our audience here is that a startup worrying about competition is a little bit like someone who is a lifelong smoker and has diabetes and is obese, then worrying about West Nile virus. Yes, it's
love it. That's great.
It's something that sure you can think about, but hey, why don't you focus on all these other things that definitely have a very direct impact. So, I mean, I don't mind competition. I think that it's great to spur innovation. I think it's great for the industry, the market. We definitely need more people doing more things. Now, we're obviously going to be fierce competitors, and we're going to do what we can to succeed. But for us, it's really about being focused on what we're trying to achieve, and the rest will sort of take care of itself.
So knowing what you know now, and let's say you had an opportunity, let's say you created a DeLorean, you can go back, 5, 10, 15 years when you're a pre-med. What kind of advice would you have given young student Dr. Sivakumar?
Great question. I think two things. One would have been soak up as much knowledge as you can in the environment and the moment that you're in. I think we go through life so often not really appreciating how much knowledge there is around us to be soaked up. And I know that certainly as a youngster, I was very much love learning and it motivates me a lot, but I didn't really live in the moment and really soak up as much as I could in that moment. And so the first thing I'd probably say to myself is, hey, live in the moment, really absorb as much as you can from the environment that you're in. And the second thing would be follow your gut. I found that following my gut has really helped me out a lot in certainly in my journey so far.
Love those answers. Now we're at the last sentence. It's a sentence that I ask all of my guests, and it goes, "I'm not just a doc, I'm a," and some of my guests have answered world traveler. Some people say entrepreneur. Some people give various answers. So for you, Dr. Gautam Sivakumar, I'm not just a doc, I'm
not just a doc, I'm a student.
I haven't had that before. That's pretty good.
Well, the word doctor, the word doctor really means teacher, and I think it's easy to say, oh, I'm just going to go around imparting knowledge. But for me, certainly, it's been the other way around. Is I try and learn from as many people and as much as I can.
That's a great answer. Dr. Gautam Sivakumar, GS, as you like to be called sometimes. Hey, man, this was a great interview. I think the audience learned a lot from you. I'm really a believer in your program, Medisas. I'm actually trying to get my hospital to talk with your company.
Let's make it happen.
Start using it. So see if we can make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
This is not a paid advertising. I actually do believe in the product. It's excellent.
Right.
So everybody out there, go out there and look up Medisas. It's really helpful. And I just want to say thank you very much for being on Docs Outside the Box. I want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. I want to acknowledge you for pivoting and not going along the herd, with what everybody's doing. When you know deep down inside you have an answer and you have a solution to something that really is important in people's lives. So I just want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. You're doing great things.
Thank you
so much.
Great
weight.
And
keep up the great work.
Thank you for the belief.
Hey. Got to do this again.
Let's do it for sure. This has been really fun.
And that's a wrap, guys. What'd y'all think about that episode? I really enjoyed it. I had a good time, had a good dynamic. I really liked the energy of Dr. Sivakumar. And, I thought his story was really good. I think it's really important to understand and underscore the concept of knowing and feeling that you have a better idea and really going out there and doing something about it. So that really resonated with me, and I really wanted to acknowledge him for what he did. I think it's really impressive to do that. And it's really interesting to have the thought process of a physician who spends the majority of his time running a very successful startup, a very successful business in Silicon Valley, and understanding what it takes to be very successful there. I think it was really cool. We haven't had anything like that on the show before. Something pretty similar was episode 7 with Dr. Julian Pham with his company, Rubicon, but I think he is out in the Massachusetts area. So either way, it was a great episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed it, please take a moment to share and tweet it out to others. If you're really feeling this show, if you're really feeling this this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts. I'm telling you, this is the best way to say thanks. This is the best way to show that you're appreciative of the show, because the way how the algorithms work, one review can have a massive effect on the rankings of the show. It makes it a lot easier for me to move up on the rankings. Number 2, it makes it a lot easier for other people to discover the show. And also, at the same time, it helps to garner some excellent guests like we've had in the past. So please make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, feedback, as you already know, I love feedback. I read feedback all the time. Make sure you reach me and hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. The direct links to those specific social media outlets are on the website. So hit me up and send me your feedback. Also, the show is going to be a lot more consistent. I am going to be making sure that we are putting out at least 3 episodes a month. So make sure that you subscribe so you can always stay up to date on the latest episodes. And I'll catch you on the next episode. But look, before I jet, remember, we only got one life, so let's make it count and live outside the box.